Javier Farje is a journalist and historian specializing in Latin American affairs, and he joins us now live from London. And thank you so much for joining us, Javier. We talked 48 hours ago before this all happened. Now, things have completely changed. What is your take on what has happened and what happens next, and has it been thought through?
Well, it's very interesting what's happening here. Frightening and interesting in equal terms. Yesterday, Marco Rubio and Trump said that they were in talks with Delcy Rodriguez. Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president, this morning, the Supreme Court the orders her to take over as the interim president because they still recognize Maduro as the president of Venezuela for the next 3 months, and any extension will have to be approved by the National Assembly, the Venezuelan parliament. So these two facts seem to be matching the whole picture. Now, Donald Trump is transactional. He will not attack Venezuela if the Venezuelans decide to accept certain conditions. If you think about what's happened, the only person who's been arrested is Maduro. He has left the whole structure of the Bolivarian process intact. The army, the police, the state, everything intact. The only thing that's missing there is Nicolás Maduro. Because the Bolivarian process at the end of the day is actually a project rather than one person. And so they're in charge of the army, they're in charge of the police, they're in charge of the state, they're in charge of the militias. So they are there. So any aggression will be repelled by this movement. So it's very important for Trump to be pragmatic about this. Now, Delcy Rodriguez, there is a report which was published, by the way, Delcy Rodriguez denied this in the Miami Herald in October last year, which suggested that she had proposed to President Trump a transition without Maduro. She denies this happened, but now, if we see what's going on in Venezuela, we can see that the pragmatic side of the Bolivarian group, the pro-Chavista group, may emerge and negotiate with Maduro. Now, with Trump. Now, you say, yes, but she said all these things on TV. She has to do that. She cannot afford at this moment, to say we're going to work with the Americans, because it would be working with imperialists. She has to use this revolutionary rhetoric, which has been used many times, but in terms of being pragmatic, in terms of the survival of what remains of the Bolivarian process, she will have to work with Trump. How it's going to happen, we don't know. I tend to believe that when Marco Rubio and Trump said they spoke to Delcy Rodriguez, I believe that that's the case. They wouldn't have said it otherwise. Now, President Trump says that he's going to run Venezuela. We don't know how he's going to do that, but he's going to need the people who are in power at the moment. He cannot do that without them, because in order to be able to do that without them, he will have to bomb them, arrest them, and start a very, very serious conflict in Venezuela.
So, Javier, what you're saying here is that the state is still in the image of former President Hugo Chavez, and that is something which can be used now to do America's bidding.
Yes, but what's happening here is Delcy Rodriguez, she is a staunch Chavista, together with Padrino and Cabello, the two, Diosdado Cabello and Vladimir Padrino, the two strong men in the government. Now, she's also, it's very interesting to know, when she was president, she was Minister for Oil and Gas. So she had total control of the gas and oil production in Venezuela. She was in charge of that. She's the one who knows how oil and gas operate in Venezuela, which means that she has the knowledge to do that. She can play with that game and say, look, Mr. President, we can do this with you, but you have to be very pragmatic. Now, we have to understand something, and don't forget that 2 days ago, President Maduro promised to deal with Donald Trump about narco traffic and oil. He promised to make concessions. He promised to have a deal with him. Why not the new president would do the same thing? Because it was already promised anyway. Delcy Rodriguez has always been in favor of doing negotiations, because she was on the side of Maduro when he proposed that he would have these deals with the United States. So at the end of the day, the structure of the Bolivarian process, whatever you want to call it, is in place. It hasn't changed. It hasn't moved. It's there. They control everything in Venezuela.
Yeah, and Javier, I think it's quite instructive as well that Donald Trump has not talked once about holding free and fair elections.
Yes. I mean, it's astonishing how Maria Corina Machado, who praised Donald Trump, who called Donald Trump the day she got the Nobel Peace Prize, and praised him for the interest in Venezuela and his support in Venezuela. He's turned his back on her completely. Why? Because she doesn't control anything in Venezuela. She doesn't have any power in Venezuela. It happened when the so-called government of Juan Guaido, some years ago, you may remember, when the National Assembly named him as interim president, but he didn't have any control in Venezuela, and they decided to chuck him away. It's the same case. She doesn't control anything, only the opposition. The army is controlled by the Chavistas, the police controlled by the Chavistas, the militias controlled by the Chavistas, the state controlled by the Chavistas, the oil, etc., everything controlled by the Chavistas. Maria Corina Machado controls absolutely nothing in Venezuela. So why would she, in terms of pragmatic, in terms of his transactional mentality, why would he deal with somebody who doesn't have any power in Venezuela? Because she doesn't have any power in terms of in pragmatic ways. So that's what, at least they are quite, I hear that the Venezuelan opposition, they are quite shocked by what happened. They don't really know how to react to that. They think that she's been scorned. She's been kicked out because she doesn't play any roles. So we don't actually know exactly how this is going to happen in the future. She wanted Edmundo Gonzalez, who lost the election last year, well, lost between inverted commas, lost the election last year, to take power. He totally ignored that. So we don't really know how the transition to democracy is going to happen, new elections, or the appointment of Edmundo Gonzalez as president. We don't know what's going to be the deal between Delcy Rodriguez and the Chavista government and Trump. We don't know yet. What we know is that it is possible. I don't rule out completely cooperation between the U.S. and the government of Delcy Rodriguez.
Javier, very quickly, how will this military action be really digested by some of those critical in the region of Donald Trump and what some are now calling the Don Road doctrine?
Well, they fear, they're afraid. Cuba is worried. They think they're going to be next. I doubt it because Cuba doesn't have oil. Colombia as well. President Gustavo Petro is worried because he's been very critical of President Maduro, of President Trump in different ways. The drug traffic, Gaza, etc. So, and as your correspondent said rightly, Colombia and Venezuela share a long border, 2,200 kilometers of border. Whatever happens in Venezuela affects Colombia in many different ways. So they are worried about it. Of course, they condemned the attacks in Venezuela. President Lula da Silva condemned the attack in Venezuela, but many right-wing presidents or far right-wing presidents like Javier Milei, they applaud the actions of Trump. So Latin America is divided. Of course, Mexico rejected as well the attacks. They criticized the attacks. So some of the powerful countries in Latin America, especially Mexico and Brazil, are against what happened there. And that could be crucial in terms of how the continent will react to the whole thing. But the continent of Latin America is not unified. It's very divided. And we don't know whether the Organization of American States will come up with some kind of statement which will satisfy everybody in the region.
Javier, thank you so much. Javier Farje is a journalist and historian specializing in Latin American affairs.
My pleasure.